How do you do? Storyteller here, and in this video we are back playing Syberia 2, but we're not playing. In this video we are just reading Alexi's journal. So if you don't want to hear the journal, then feel free to skip this video and go right on to the next video in the series. But if you want to stick around and listen to me read Alexi's journal, then stay tuned, because we're about to start. Alexei Torkinov, Notes and Sketches from the Frozen North. April 15th, 1947. I loaded my bags and provisions onto a sled pulled by several sturdy, healthy beasts, and left to Romansburg Monastery, heading northwards in search of a mysterious peoples inhabiting the vast and desolate wastes of the Siberian tundra. My superiors had conferred on me the mission of evangelizing those pagan tribes from the heathens' shamanic beliefs. Shaman. Magic. I traveled under an assumed identity, that of a lowly trapper. I had to be wary of the agents of the state and of the military, for whom any religious activity is suspect. They, for their part, traveled the length and breadth of the eastern Syberia trying to convince the villagers of the debatable beliefs of collectivism. Is that, like, Nazis? I don't know. It took me several weeks to accustom myself to the unfamiliar harness. I found no dogs in Romansburg and had to make do with the Yorkis purchased from a hunter. The Yorkie? I don't know if that's the Yori? Yori. The Yori is related to both seals and dogs. In the wild, the Yori lives on the riverbanks. It is an easy capture for the trapper, as it is gluttonous as its gluttony is well documented. In winter, it gorges itself on orange salmon, a prey that often has to share the wild with the fierce Siberian bear, another creature very partial to the fish. The Yori, or Yoki, once tamed, the Yoki/Yori is an affectionate but whimsical animal. It resists all forms of disciplined training, and only if there are no dogs available is used to pull sleds. Certain Arctic peoples, however, seem to have better mastered the secret of their domestication, and the Yoki, I'm gonna go with Yori, is central to their daily activities. Of all the peoples who inhabit these god-forsaken regions, I find that the yokels have the most fascinating. Perhaps that is why I headed for those regions where I was most likely to encounter them. Religious mask, representing the sole messenger who guides the dying to the other world. Yokels are fearful of him. Okay. Kinda looks like Frankenstein's monster, but... The journey was long and dangerous. It wasn't until October 27th of 1947 that, for the first time, I made contact with the yokels. Yokels, yeah. I've spent several long months living among them. I have come to know them and understand them for who they are. I soon abandoned any notion of converting them. I applied myself instead to the study of their mores and moves and customs. His handwriting is a little bit weird. So little is known about the yokels, less is known about any inhabitant of the frozen north. Today they live far, far away in the furthermost tip of the Siberian tundra. Because of their remoteness and their inhospitable climate, the yokels have remained in a small number, overlooked by a scientific community and the Soviet government machine. The only documents available before my departure were several drawings and notes and photographs taken 100 years ago by Russian explorer Marie Bodranov. It is to her we owe what little of the yokel people is known and of its culture. I know I'm reading that out of order, but I'm a little dyslexic. The yokels hark back to the last ice age. Curiously, traces of their presence have been found in Western Europe, more precisely in the heart of the French Alps, in prehistoric caves of Valdien. This suggests that over centuries they undertook a long migration toward the extreme north of the globe. The second Harfang. This bird is inseparable from the yokel shaman. It seems to be considered in turns as his friend, representative, and even as his incarnation. Oh, that is a lovely face. Lemmings congregated on the open plains of Syberia. They feed on grains and small fruit they store in the holes to face the scarcity of the winter months ahead. Lemmings dig deep tunnels into the ice to escape their predators. The hunters they most fear are the harfangs, who seem to find lemmings something of a delicacy. Aren't those the creatures that all follow each other, and if one runs off a cliff, they'll all run off a cliff? They're like an analogy for people. Anyway. These things are actually kind of cute. I want one now. However you pronounce the name. On several occasions during my journey, I encountered traces of yokel society to the far west of the areas we know today. Along forest trails, I discovered small piles of carefully piled stones, altars on which yokel hunters made ritual offerings to one of their pagan gods. We now know the reason for the yokels' long migration. Their domestic economy was, it seems, directly linked to the mammoth. They used the mammoth for both transport and the beast of burden, for meat, skin, fat, and ivory. It is beyond doubt that we are dealing with a genuine case of symbiosis between man and animal. Mammoths are forced north by changing climate conditions, and the yokels followed. Sorry, I'm having trouble breathing through my nose, so I have to take pauses just to breathe. Some prehistoric cave drawings, identified as being of yokel origin, have led the scientific community to conjecture that at one time the yokels realized the incredible achievement of domesticating mammoths. They are, to our knowledge, the only prehistoric people to have represented a man astride a mammoth. Yokel life was thus intimately linked to that of their pachyderms. They used their hides for clothing and to build roofs, walls, and houses. They used the tusks to construct the frameworks of their dwellings, for weapons, tools, and jewelry. Curiously, the disappearance of the mammoth 12,000 years ago had no immediate impact on the yokels' way of life. It seems that they were able to retain the strong link that tied them to the mammoths throughout the millennia. As incredible as it might seem, the yokels still feed on mammoth meat today, and use mammoth hide for clothing and to roof their dwellings. Their craftsmanship of the mammoth ivory is altogether remarkable. It appears that the yokels have managed to retain their ancestral habits by using, over the years, the many frozen mammoth bodies that are perfectly preserved in the frozen Siberian wastes. They are said to have lived off the enormous pantry for more than 30 centuries. To do this, they have hollowed out a vast network of caves in the frozen ground. According to the intrepid explorer Marie Baudrenoff, yokel civilization has now gone underground. Specialists in the paleontology department of St. Petersburg have never credited yokels' myths and legends. However, the legend of Syberia Ice Ark is typical of such folklore. It has long been considered a fable told by shaman in the evening to ward off the boredom as the long Siberian winter months during. The legend says that somewhere in the lost island to the north of the tundra there still exists live mammoths, relics of the long-gone ice age, a tiny population that has been preserved for more than 12 centuries under the yokel care. Bless you. The island of pachyderms is The island the pachyderms inhabit is called Syberia. To my notes, I have added the tale of this legend, as Marie Baudrenoff related it in her memoirs. It agrees on all points with statements from the yokels I had the fortune to meet. Bless you. Although the story constitutes no proof of the existence of the island of Syberia, it forms a tantalizing hypothesis. Scarlet bramble, Infernus rubus, bluegrass, not the music, fossilized plant life. When fall arrives, the odor of its flowers is so strong that it is known to awaken hibernating yoki. Or yori. I said yori. Scarlet bramble. Mixed with the walrus blubber or tallow, this scarlet bramble is frequently used in yokel medicine. Its fumes, released by burning, have considerable healing properties. The shamans recount that the plant only grows on the tomb of one whose soul is at peace. Oh, I didn't read that before. Bless you. We found the scarlet bramble on this guy's grave. Isn't that interesting? On this explorer's grave, we found a plant that can only grow on a tomb of a soul that is at peace. That's a funny little coincidence. I like that. It's not a coincidence. You know, they directly meant that to be that, but it's kind of cool we picked that up. Anyway, the legend of Syberia. At the end of the last ice age, there were very huge climate changes. Much of the land was flooded by water. This sudden environmental variation put the existence of a number of animal species in danger, including the mammoths that inhabit the lands of Siberian North at the time. The yokels, a particularly advanced people for their age, not their age, set about the construction of an enormous ark like that of Noah, with the objective of preserving the mammoths, objects of religious devotion, from extinction. The enormous craft was entirely constructed of mammoth tusks and was loaded with a small herd of the beasts and huge quantities of fur. The fate of the ship was entrusted to several particularly courageous members of the yokel clan. Their mission was to lead the animals toward a more welcoming climes. Once such lands were discovered, it was agreed that they would unload the animals and then come back to spread the tidings of their good fortune. It wasn't until 10 years later that the ark returned to its starting place. The yokels who remained on the continent were surprised to find a ship empty, but for the particularly preserved bodies of several mammoths in the ice that packed the bottom of the ship. They took this mysterious offering as a sign from the gods and ate the mammoths in a memorable feast. A week later, carried along by ocean currents, the ark set sail again. Once more returned 10 years later, with more frozen mammoths on board. The phenomenon continued for millennia. Every 10 years the ark would reappear, each time filled with immaculately preserved mammoths. Bless you. The yokels interpreted the phenomenon as an act of benevolence on the part of their souls for the congeners who had died during the ark's first journey in some infernal maritime cataclysm. They made a religion of the ark with its own rites and customs that was marked by periodic appearance of the phantom ship and its precious cargo. For centuries nothing seemed to affect the ark's mysterious roundabout. One day, however, the ark returned earlier than expected and empty. This was 100 years ago. The poor yokels fell into deep despair. Everything they had believed in had been founded on the culture since the dawn of time lost meaning. The most valiant tried hard to maintain hope, especially because the ark still continued its into the unknown, borne away on the seasonal ocean tides, but one morning the ark refused to set sail. Many yokels then left their village forever, trailing their despair across the tundra. Sometimes they can be encountered on the smoke-filled drinking holes of their last outposts of civilization. These poor sodden souls drown their befuddled minds in alcohol, recounting their unlikely mammoth tales to fellow alcoholics. When the explorer Bodranov arrived among the yokels, she noted the presence of what was once a ship. Only the yokels could perceive the mythical craft of their legends beneath the layer of ice that had accumulated over the centuries. She put forth the hypothesis that the accumulated ice had eventually doubled the volume of the ark and rendered it incapable of negotiating the dangers posed by the floating ice in the Arctic floe. I, Alexei Tokhanov, bless you, can confirm that the observation of this audacious adventure are true. The ark that leads to the Isle of Syberia is indeed real, and even if I have not found formal proof, I am convinced that of this isle's existence and remnants of a mammoth population may still live there today. Alexei Tokhanov. And there, ladies and gentlemen, you have it. The Journal of Alexei. So apparently that did enlighten a lot of how Syberia got formed and why it's there and why nobody can find it. It's out in the frozen wastes. But it was formed as an act of preservation on the part of the yokels for the mammoth species. it didn't just happen that there's an island, and there's mammoths on it. No, it was an intentional act of preservation to help conserve the population of the mammoths, which actually makes a lot of sense, especially if they move them to a warmer climate where the mammoths could still exist, even though we see this weather as uninhabitable. So that's really interesting. Okay, so that was it. I just wanted to read the journal. In the next episode, we'll continue on with the story and continue on with the rest of the game. This game is amazing so far. I was a little nervous in the beginning that it wasn't going to live up to its expectations, but it's turning out to be really amazing, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!